All right.
Cheers, guys. We're talking head size and greenhouses. Take it away.
Are we live? Are we fucking live over here? What's going on? We got Turposaurus Rex in the fucking house, man. This could be a good show.
Welcome, man.
I'm excited for this one. No, we were just Turp was over here fucking. What are we gonna call him? Let's call him Rex. All right, let's establish that right now. Rex was just quizzing me, I guess, on the Eden growing process, and he was just asking me regarding whether or not we were outdoor grow, and we are partial because we've got the greenhouse, but we also, we use full sun as well. And I mean, they've got their UV blocks and whatnot, but he was asking if we notice larger heads with outdoor grows, and we absolutely do, absolutely notice more so in the outdoor when I run it here, because I have no UV block whatsoever. I mean, it's full sun except the plastic. But yeah, we definitely notice larger heads. We just don't. I wish we were to the point, and like we were talking, in which we were separating more than just a 73 to 159.
You think it's the UVB or the natural UV that's causing that, or is it just a wide array of all of the above kind of thing?
What do you think, Rex?
Well, in my experience, just washing outdoor crops, they always had a lot of big heads.
Do you think? What is your perspective as to why?
I think just the intensity of the natural sun, man. To be honest, a little bit of stress. That's a lot of stress.
It's a lot of stress.
Yeah, and sometimes that stress does good stuff.
What's the altitude like over there? Where are they?
We're basically mile high here.
Yeah. How about we start there, Rex? Why don't you give us a quick rundown of who you are, what you do, a little history about where you come from, and you and I haven't met before, so pretend like we haven't, and tell me who you are, man.
Word, sounds good. Well, I go by Rex. My name's Ryan. I'm from South Florida, and I come from agriculture and horticultural background. So I've been growing plants, just native plants to Florida, pretty much since I was a little kid. And then transferred that into weed, and then weed was a lot more fun, And then moved out here to Colorado and got involved with the medical industry and just keep doing my thing. But I've been growing for almost 19 years and extracting for 15.
You grow both on or process both on the commercial and the recreational side, yeah?
Now, unfortunately, we don't have a rec here in Colorado Springs, but we're med.
So the whole city is med only.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they must do it similar to how we do it in Michigan here, and we basically have the state left it up to the municipalities. So each municipality gets to decide whether or not they want to opt in or opt out of the entire program.
Yeah,
through and through, or and if they do opt in, whether or not they want to have grows, labs, testing facility, transport facilities, processors, dispensaries, you name it. Like, they can tell you how many licenses they want, what the fees will be for the municipality, all that. And a lot of them early on did only have med, and I think with good intention behind it. But very quickly, pretty much a year into the rec program, not even a year into the rec program, actually, here in Michigan, which started, I believe, at the end of 2019, we saw it went pretty much 90% recreational and 10% medical in terms of the overall sales volume in the state. And as of July, our most recent report that came out, it is, I believe, 97.2% recreational sales now. And under 3% medical, which is, being a caregiver and coming from that space, a little heartbreaking, kind of understandable when it comes to the economics of everything, and the way that the regulations were kind of laid out for everyone here. But I mean, you're med only, but you're med only in an area that's med only. So it's kind of like, it's not like you got like some some big dogs breathing down your neck, like kind of like forcing you out one way or another, from like a kind of side, like, you know, sister industry almost, if you will. You're just kind of competing against, you know, other people that are up against the same regulations. And that's the thing here in Michigan. What is it? Superior. I think it's 10,000 units. Well, I forget what the measurement of units, but it's like 10,000 units for mold on rec. And then it's like 10,000 is the limit for medical. 100,000 units for mold is the limit for recreational.
Yeah, it's like a tenfold.
Yeah, and so, like, you know, it was just people were having a hard time passing recreational testing, let alone the medical testing. You know, I don't think that's maybe a reason to loosen testing restrictions. You know, but I think that's kind of where it ended up, unfortunately.
Oh, we got some crazy ones here in Colorado too. I mean, there's some pretty strict testing that are really sensitive tests.
Tell us, I mean, what are you guys required to do in terms of the grow, indoor versus outdoor, medical versus rec, you know, processing, all that kind of stuff?
Oh man, I mean, what we get tested for, Pedro? It's micro, pest, metals,
mold.
Yeah, a microbial.
Yeah,
that new aspergillus one is a
dude.
nightmare.
Aspergillus, mother. Oh my god,
That
dude.
shit makes my
It is
blood
extremely tough to pass because
it's any detectable amount.
Yeah,
So
it
there's no-
one ppm done.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
done.
Yeah.
So, you know, right now we are breathing aspergillus. There are there's like, I forget how many strains of aspergillus
It's like
there are.
PM, man. It's in the air. It's on plants all over.
Exactly. It's
everywhere.
everywhere, dude. Yeah. So you virtually can't get rid of it unless you are sterilizing your product, and that means either sterilizing your flour or your fucking extract or your rosin at the end of the day. It's like it's
crazy.
horrible. Yeah, it is a definite ridiculous thing that they're making us jump through. I believe I reached out to you, Rex, a couple weeks ago and was like, what the fuck? What are you having problems too? You know?
It's I think everyone's in the same boat. I mean, it's just a super sensitive test, and I feel bad for the people that are really clean that are getting tripped for it. You know, it kind of sucks for them because it ends up costing you a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it really does. We've passed quite a few of them, but we definitely have failed. You know, because of the one fucking ppm rule, and they give us obviously they give us one chance to remediate if we can, and then retest, try it again. But essentially for mold, I mean, remediation involves heat, so you're losing the value of your product. Then it either goes to edibles or to vape pens.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's just a hypersensitive test, you know.
So you're involved on the cultivation side, in the I'll call it commercial industry, right, Rex? And not only cultivation, but the processing side as well. What exactly is your role in both sides? Because honestly, most of the time, people are just involved in one side or the other, not both. It's kind of cool, you know, unless it's like a micro business or something.
No, it's a really cool situation, to be honest. It's a family-owned business, and they have 2 medical grows, 2 medical dispensaries, and then this sister company lab that I run. And as far as helping out in the grow, I go in there and I help them with, you know, whatever advice they need, if they need any, and walk through. And their son is the head grower, and he's a really good grower, and he doesn't really need much help, to be honest. His name's Grant. He's great. And so I'm at the lab most of the time. But yeah, that's what I do for them.
It's kind of an extra eye or extra helping hand where, you know, when needed.
Yeah,
side.
Exactly.
It's nice to be diversified. And honestly, most of us that do end up in the lab came from the cultivation side in the first place, you know, especially if we're like that legacy style caregiver, you know,
100%
type grower, you know, or type, you know, I guess processor at this point. But you know, I've seen it in a lot of commercial labs here in Michigan where they hired someone that got a degree in something specific and hired them. And it seemed to me like it was a very expensive hire to do very basic math. Because I feel like experience and being having your hands on in this is a lot more helpful than a degree in it. And I have a degree, but not in the cannabis world, and I do find value in it very often. But I don't know, man. I've seen these guys work, and it's like you are paying someone a lot of money to do algebra right now, is what you're doing. And I know it makes you feel better as a businessman, as an investor, as a whatever. But like, man, you need someone that knows what they're doing with the plant, and then being able to convert that into a dabbable product or whatever whatever you're trying to produce here.
For sure.
Same within the lab. I mean, you can get it to where it is repeatable very easily, where everything goes the way you want it to, everything goes smoothly. But the expertise, the experience definitely comes in when some shit goes wrong, or when you need to fix something, or basically, when shit goes wrong. Dealing with something and knowing how to deal with it without like wasting thousands of dollars or whatnot is where the experience really comes in.
You see this in a lot of industries though too, where they start off, you've got money people coming in, and so they think they need to hire education. They don't understand hiring the guy that's been doing it for 25 years. Yeah, it's a different ballgame. We understand that, but they don't as money people. And that's where they have to be taught. Like, no,
they learn real quick when they're starting to deal with money and shit goes wrong. Yeah.
Can't learn everything in the classroom, not with growing processing.
And that's kind of how I got in with Eden. Is shit was going wrong. Shit was going big time south. So they basically had me come in, as a subcontractor to fix things. And once I got things straightened out, they were just like, "Do you just want to run this?" So we just end up just running it.
I tell you, that's how most caregivers get a job. It seems like they get called when shit's hitting the fan, and then once they prove themselves in a very obvious way, sometimes, or in a very drastic way. I've seen that happen too, where maybe a team or a certain caregiver has come into a commercial facility, basically sat to the side for a couple weeks, kind of took note of what was happening, and then said, "Hey, give me the opportunity on the next cycle," and immediately within 9 weeks at that point is taking over the facility. Can go a lot quicker, I guess, with someone that's focused on processing maybe, but man, it helps to have that full background. That's why I think it is kind of a natural next step from cultivation, is something like processing. But honestly, it seems like the next step from here is something like tissue culture, maybe, because it's still like kind of lab oriented, almost even more so. But now you're almost going back to the cultivation side.
Why do I got to go anywhere from here?
You don't. I'm just trying to figure out what the next natural progression is.
Well, you tell me I got to go somewhere else.
Right.
What are y'all smoking on? Let's take a smoke. Well, not a smoke break. I guess we can't back and forth. But what are y'all smoking on?
Let's see right now.
I know, right? You got to
banana around.
It's always fun when you ask like a processor themselves what they're smoking on. Number one, it's generally multiple jars, and number two, it's generally jars like he's got.
I don't think you'd be able to see that, but some grape ape.
Grape ape. I got some grape pie here in front of me. How's your grape ape?
It's supposedly the old Barney's, the original, the one you got from Barney's back in the day.
Barney's. That's where we were having a fucking conversation the other day, trying to figure out where my Critical Kush came from. And that's where I ordered it. I ordered it from Barney's farm.
Yeah, Barney's is known for that grape ape, man.
Found it myself, and yeah, it doesn't matter. Well, we're starting to put it out a little more. Just keep your eyes open.
Well, I remember that you're talking about the Critical Kush.
Yeah, my critical kush. There's only me and one other grow that has my cut of critical.
That's a great story of me meeting you at that expo and taking that box of critical kush home with me.
Critical's fun, man. You don't have critical, right? You don't have the cut. I thought there was just you took home a box of cuts.
Rosin.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't think you took a cut. I don't think I gave anybody a cut of that shit.
Pedro just panicked. I think we.
Oh no! I was like,
wait a minute.
did I just lie? Did I just
No,
fucking lie? Brad B over here, one of the rigs tonight.
Nice. So do you have a certain type of processing that you like to do, Rex? Are you kind of involved in both the hydrocarbon and the solventless side? Are you running distillate? What's kind of your forte over there?
I'm doing is solventless is definitely my specialty, but I do the hydrocarbons as well at the lab. Yep. We don't do any distilling. But yeah, I run the closed loop, and then I do all the solventless as well.
Well, let's start there. Tell me about the closed loop system. What kind of equipment are you running?
Oh man, I am running one of the original ETSs, the 1300 Goliath. I don't know if that makes any sense to any of you guys, but
well, people that are interested will know, and they'll go look it up.
It's one of the originals. It's a cool machine, and it's got some cool upgrades to it too. So
now, what does 1300 mean? Is that like a 1300 cc?
Just a model.
Okay,
just a model.
How many how much volume are you running in terms of dry weight? Are you doing dry weight, fresh frozen? What are you guys running?
Both.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I get quite a bit done a day.
The column itself, I don't know if are you running multiple columns, but in terms of the materials columns, like how much dry weight are you fitting in there? And then I'm gonna give you a heads up because I wanna know the conversion to fresh frozen. Like I want to know how much fresh frozen you can fit in that same volume, that same column.
I'd say dry about 4 pounds.
Okay.
They're small, but I could do I can knock them out in about an hour. So
nice.
Stack them up pretty good. Fresh frozen, man. Probably around 3K.
Okay. So you're getting closer to like 6.5 pounds or so, 6.5 pounds.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I always thought it was about a 50% increase in my experience. That's kind of what I'm seeing, but I'm working at a smaller level even than that,
Yeah. They're not very big machines, but they're quick.
Yeah. Is it active recovery? Are you guys using like a
No, I use pumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we got chillers set up running to them so we can adjust the temps, to make it run smooth.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a nice little setup.
What's up, Dizzy? Welcome.
Hey, sorry I'm late, everybody. What are you chatting about? Hi, Turfosaurus.
Hey. We were just about to talk about what Rex prefers in regards to solventless versus hydrocarbon extraction. Okay. Not as to let me clarify, not as to consumption, but as to processing itself.
Okay.
Oh, I think so. I like making solventless more for sure. It's more hands-on. It's more artisan-like, if you will, I guess. You feel like you're hand making something when you make solventless. It's a cool.
When you wash, are you hand washing or machine washing?
Both. Sometimes, sometimes I'm hustling. Sometimes I'm machine washing while I'm blasting.
There you go. Multitask.
When you're machine washing, what size washer do you? How many do you
use? I have like a linked set of 20 gallons, 320 gallons.
You use 20 gallons.
Yeah. And the old school approach. Pedro knows all about that.
Let me go into the detail for who's ever in the comments, because this is where it should go anyways. When you use the 20s, as far as I've seen, there's basically only one design of the 20. And it's got that back, I don't know if it's a soap fucking holder, the soap corner. Like there's a corner reservoir. There's a corner of the washer that holds shit.
Yeah.
What do you do about that?
Everyone that I've had, you've been able to rip that thing out of there.
But then it still has a hole that goes down.
I'll cap it with a food grade cap, like a food grade material. Yeah.
That's the only thing that's ever kept me from running a 20 gallon. I'd love to run a 20 gallon, to be completely honest with you. But
yeah, and then you gut them all up and stuff.
yeah, you got to gut them. You got to change the hoses and whatnot. But
Yeah.
that corner, I call it, I think it's a soap reservoir. I don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah, it
The
leaves like a
water
little
comes in.
stub, a little fitting in the bottom.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
if you were able to, obviously, I've seen that corner, the cover, if you will. Obviously, you can rip that off. But then there's still been that damn hole in the bottom, and I've had a lot of people ask me about how they modify that corner, and I just tell them use 5 gallons.
Yeah, I mean whatever works. I mean, it's not a race.
Yeah, no shit, right? Well, sometimes it is when you're harvesting outdoor.
And honestly,
but you're only racing yourself.
It can be.
That's you talk about the hands-on part of solventless, and I appreciate that because you explained it in a way in which you described it as artisan. It's more hands-on. You're crafting something. It's more about the processor than maybe the process, itself.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is certainly choosing your equipment. Whether it be 20-gallon buckets or 5-gallon buckets. But you're also, all those things that you're talking about are reasons why I like hydrocarbon and closed loop processing better, because I think it's more efficient. I think it can be less work.
Yeah.
And while it is sort of less hands-on, especially once you've dialed in your process, it kind of comes to the post processing work, what you're turning it into once you've extracted, whether it's a batter or a sauce or what have you. But that's only a minor part of that process. But I'll tell you what, man, the efficiency of a closed loop system, that's such a winner for me, especially when I know, in my opinion, that I can create the same quality hash, but what's your opinion on that? Do you think you can? Let me preface this. I think BHO in the last couple of years has had a bad rap because there's been so many awful commercial productions of BHO that have given it a bad name in the last few years.
Definitely.
Now, I always kind of describe it like this. There's this curve of quantity and quality when it comes to solventless and BHO. And BHO kind of starts over here and, kind of comes up, right? And then it comes back down and then it slowly goes off. I think solventless is more like starts more in the middle. You don't have all that bad, like really just a lot of bad shit like BHO because there's so much of it being produced. There's still bad solventless, but it's more like starts in the center, and it still has that nice, beautiful peak, but it comes down just as quick as it went up, and it doesn't reach this other end that BHO does, because I do think that BHO will get, quite frankly, the terpenes that solventless is incapable of getting. And that, in my opinion, is what makes it just a touch better. But we're only talking about that like 1%, of BHO. And that's probably competing against like 10% of solventless because there's so much bad BHO. But what about you? What is your opinion on that in terms of the capabilities of the quality that you can get out of each process?
Man, you can make some really good solventless hash that is just amazing and full of flavor, just like BHO. But I mean, I think it just comes down to the person that's making it, I mean, good, clean hash either way is going to be good. But
it's all about the variables of the hash.
Yeah.
If you want to get honest, you want to break into there.
Yeah, and if someone doesn't know what they're doing BHO wise, they can really make some nasty stuff, and I think that's where it's gotten a bad rap because everyone's had BHO that was really good. It's few and far between, That's my guess. That's my opinion on it.
Okay.
But I mean, I tell you what, there's some solventless out there that has the terps of any terpy live resin. There's some good growers and good hash makers that can make some gnarly solventless.
Yeah, when Fergoli said that, I was thinking particularly my mind always goes to test it, right? Like take one cultivar, do ice water extraction, and do your hydrocarbon extraction, and test the terpene content.
Well, and
that's the only way that you can.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
There's so many things in the BHO process that'll alter that terpene content, though. I don't think they'll ever be close to the same. Because you gotta think, you're melting that down into a solution and running it through different kinds of temps, and
but we're talking about temps that are never evaporating the terpenes, unlike the squishing process.
Right.
So,
I mean, when I've taken fresh frozen of the same, like, strain, same cut,
same harvest or whatever, yeah,
and ran it as live resin and ran it as solventless, and the terpene percentages were close, but the percentages of each terpene were different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I get it. And this is one of my sticking points, is that I've been convinced that you can actually get a wider range of terpenes through the solventless washing process than you can through the hydrocarbon process. Now, part of the reason, or part of the way I combat that, is by using a tri-blend of solvents. I'm not just using butane. I'm not just using propane. I'm actually using a tri-blend of solvents to help kind of gather that wider range.
Yeah, a little propane in there will help do that for sure.
But while I think it's possible to get a broader variety of terpenes through solventless, I still don't think you're getting as many that exist in the plant itself, in my experience. And the
percentages are usually a little bit lower on the solventless than they are the live resin, for sure.
And Pedro brought up variables, but I don't want to change the name of the show, but I want to offer up a different word when it comes to solventless, and I think it's limitations, because I do think solventless does have its limitations, and one of those is when it comes to a lot of the strains I really enjoy. In particular, they just don't wash well because they are those greasy, hazy, terpenoline type strains. Yeah. And so it's a bummer to me that I never really even get to experience. I mean, I get to experience it, but never in the quantities that I want to. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the challenges for me. Efficiency is a huge thing. It's a huge benefit in the in my experience, but the limitations is another thing that I don't. I mean, maybe it gets talked about, but I don't see it talked about maybe enough.
So in my never have done a hydrocarbon extraction. We got a kitty in the house here. I've always thought that the hydrocarbon extraction will extract terpenes, but if we're gonna, let's go down the road of let's just stay on terpenes, that it's going to extract terpenes that I don't want, whereas in ice water extraction, it's just extracting the terpene. There's terpenes in the plant matter itself smells, so it has terpene content, and if you're extracting that terpene content, are you doing anything to then take it back out?
I think the difference in my experience is the lipids. When you do the hydrocarbon, you're getting most of those lipids out, which makes the terpenes just slightly bitter, because if you know about how lipids and terpenes work together, you have to have some lipids with your terps to get a really sweet, smooth flavor. It's kind of like with food, So solventless does have that advantage to where there are some, photolipids left behind, and that helps those terpenes be a little bit smoother when you hit it on the nail, versus like a live resin where you hit the terps are a little bit more sharp in the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like maybe burning off at different temperatures or something. But
exactly.
I also think maybe you're already burning those off on your rosin press, But do you have any idea what those? Oh shoot, what'd you call them? Not phytoterpenes. What were they?
Photolipids.
Photolipids. What are those terpenes that interact with those photolipids? Do you have any idea off the top of your head? Because I have a very small vocabulary when it comes to the terpenes in my mind and which ones are important to me. But I know which
all
ones.
of them. It's just like man, I wish I had a good analogy for it. It's you need to have fat to have flavor, I guess is the only way I could think of it. If you're thinking food terms, you know what I mean?
I'm gonna have to look into this more because many of the strains I grow are very much strains that taste like something you can grow yourself, for example, Clementine, my Cannabis Cup winning Clementine strain known as a sativa. It's very much just a straight Clementine orange, you know what I mean? It's a food flavor. But Lime Skunk, and Superior Bud shaking his head, he can attest to some of these. Lime Skunk, same way. It's that just crazy spot on lime with a skunk in the backyard, you know what I mean? And not maybe you're not growing skunk, but you can grow some limes. And then my Garlic Punch, it's just all garlic and berries, and so, but a lot of these strains, excluding the Garlic Punch, are the strains that don't wash well. And so that's why I'm wondering, it's
a bummer.
It's like, are they how do the fats and lipids come in? Because I am doing everything I can to not bring fats, lipids, chlorophyll, and other what I would call contaminants into my extract. And really the only way I go about doing that, but is the most effective way I've found, without getting into the CRC shit, is just keeping it cold. Dry ice, chiller, like you said, -40, -70 degrees, somewhere in that range.
Filters.
Yeah. Small micron filters also can help with that. But yeah, keeping it cold, it kind of like almost freezes that stuff in place. But it makes me wonder how, am I leaving a crazy amount of terpenes or a specific type of terpene behind, that maybe is not showing up in my test results in my extract, but is in my flower. And I'll tell you, I've done years worth and thousands of dollars worth of testing on my own strains, both in flower form and concentrate form and edible and topical form and beyond, but I never see that significant of a difference when it comes to that.
It's a minuscule. I mean, we're being real picky.
Yeah, but that's fine. That's what we're here for. We want to talk about these variables that can change that.
You talk about these strains that don't wash, but you love the terps of them that are good for the hydrocarbon, and it's a bummer on one side, but it's kind of perspective because as a solventless hash maker, that's kind of the thrill of the hunt. It's a gambling sport.
I'm glad you bring that up because with how heavy we've been breeding, in our basements, our garages, and then our grows, like commercial grows now, over the last few years. Well, no, I say few years. It's really been few decades. And then, Peter, can you mute his mic real quick while he's torching? So with the amount of breeding we've done, as growers over the last few years, and then, oh man, I totally lost my train of thought. That torch got me. Fuck, breeding, going somewhere with that, concentrates.
Sorry.
Oh, I got it. Okay. So with how much breeding we've done over the last few decades and really like focusing on maybe certain things like whether they grow in a tent or in someone's, backyard or commercial, like we got this beautiful commercial strain everyone knows and loves called Super Boof in the last couple of years. Like there's certain things that take, the market by storm for one reason or another. Taking that and combining it with this just very aggressive love for solventless hash over the last few years. One of my concerns is that we are now breeding for almost strictly for commercial hash production. And I think there's a lot of things that could potentially be lost in our lineages and the characteristics of this plant if we just focus on that. Do you have any worry about that? Do you think there's any concern for that or anything like that?
Man, I think if you were running a business, it would be wise on your part to pheno hunt hash strains and flower strains, personally.
Yeah, but should you pheno hunt hash, flour, and hydrocarbon.
Man, if you get that lucky,
Right?
I
mean, but that's a lot of fucking work, right?
Well, hold on.
A lot of plants.
We know what makes a good kind of a good flower plant. Like we all smoke flower. That's kind of where we start.
People want the bag appeal, the smell.
Yeah, the bag appeal, the smell, the size. I mean, from a grower's perspective, the production and all those kinds of things, resistance to powdery mildew, pests, everything. From a hash maker's perspective, like we're talking in terms of solventless, like we talked about certain things that are beneficial for that. What is it? Because you didn't even really mention this right off the bat, and Pedro brought it up, but specifically BHO. Personally, I think all hash is, all extracts are hash. But what makes? I mean, and definitively it is. But what makes a good like BHO? I guess a good live resin strain. Like, is there such a thing, or is that kind of just everything as a good live resin strain?
I think because you're just melting all those heads down into a solution. I don't think that really matters. I would assume that anything that yields good to solventless would yield good to live resin.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna ask. I would assume it would.
It would probably yield more because you're pulling, depending on your solventless style, you're trying not to pull a lot of stalk. You're trying to pull mostly heads. I would assume. So
yeah, you're definitely washing. You definitely cut your wash, and you do lose yield in the ice water, extraction.
If your QC is tight.
You stop at a certain point in time. I mean, you obviously you have to stop at a certain point in time. But I mean, unless we're washing, God, I don't even know how many washes. Variables dependent upon the cultivar. How many washes it would even take to extract all of the heads from the plant, and then I had an argument ish, not negatively with the gentleman on Instagram regarding whether or not stalks contain anything valuable as well, or if they're completely worthless, as was his claim, and cheers.
There's a lot in that. If you're talking about, well, that's the thing. Like you could be very, very particular in the solventless washing process, probably more so than you can in the hydrocarbon process. Like you're saying, time, temperatures, even down to from what I understand, the pH of your water, right, can be factors in what you're getting on the other end. How clean your stuff is. I guess some of these things cross over, but you can kind of almost cut corners, if you will, to increase your yield, but at what cost? And I think that is, I hate to say it, but with this whole going back to the BHO thing and how the quality has really disintegrated over the last half a decade or so, I think that's what most people found is they could actually use this to, I've got a failed crop. Well, let's just blast it and turn it into edibles, turn it into distillate, turn it into, whatever's can make us some money. And
do you think that some of the, sorry to interrupt, I thought you were done there. Do you think that some of the reason that the degradation in quality is due to the pursuit of extra quantity?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a squeeze on people to make some money right now.
And on both sides of the fence, hydrocarbon and solventless extraction.
Yeah, I mean the price of hydrocarbons is they're cheap, man. It's a tough game. Both are tough.
Well, and I don't know how you would do it on the solventless side necessarily, other than what you guys brought up already. But I've told people, some of my clients, it's like, yeah, I can get you a better return than you're gonna get off of what I could alter my process and give you a better return. But that's not why you came to me. Yeah, I could change a variable like temperature, and instead of running at negative 40 degrees, run it at 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And guess what? You're going to get a lot more on your return. But guess what that is? It's the fats, lipids, chlorophyll, and that other crap you don't want. So it's not giving you a better product. Just because you have more of it doesn't mean anything, really. And so like, I think for most of us on this panel, it's about cutting out those bad things and refining this into the best possible product we can. And so if we have to, like Pedro's saying, take a 10% loss on it or a 15% loss on it on the overall return or the yield of it, because it's going to be a superior product. Well, guess what, guys? That's the cost of doing business. We're going to write that right into the, into the worksheets. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because that's what it takes to have a superior product. And most people, like we've been talking about, almost no one is actually doing that.
So here's a thought that I just had in regards to obviously both the two sides of the fence of processing. When I'm doing solventless processing, at a certain point in time, I keep, there's different parts, there's different pulls in which, there's a load, and then there's different pulls that I do. So when I'll pull wash 1, pull wash 2, pull wash 3, and that gives me the ability to, modify my variables between the washes and then keep them separate, which then enables me to, at a certain point in time, be like, all right, I'm done with my premium product. Now I'm going to change the variables, beat the hell out of it, and salvage what would otherwise be a waste, and turn that into, medical food grade or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Is there even is that a possibility in hydrocarbon extraction, or are you just getting all of it all at once?
Man, I mean, the price of running hydrocarbon is so low that, I mean, you just run stuff and put it aside as food grade, to be honest.
You would never even get a premium smokable product.
I mean, what we usually do is like batches that don't meet our QC would get marked as food grade, but we're still clean. Is kind of how we do it,
I mean, for Growly over there is blasting some shit that I need to get my hands on.
Check it out.
Oh man, I'm telling you, as far as
I like good. Hey, good in my book. Good hash is good hash.
Yeah, exactly.
And I agree. The man behind the mirror.
Dude, I'll sit here and prop up BHO all day, but you're right.
Sure.
Like, good hash is good hash, and when it comes down to a blind taste test, you shouldn't be able to tell the difference, because good hash is good hash.
Yeah. When it comes to good, I was going to say you shouldn't be able to tell the difference, but unfortunately, we do.
Well,
but when it comes to good, good is good, that ability to tell the difference diminishes greatly. Diminishes greatly. That would be interesting to have. That would be interesting to have like a panel and do stuff like that live.
Bro, I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and
cool.
I want to start with I'm gonna out myself here, but like sneakily grabbing a handful of solventless products that are known throughout here in Michigan, and not necessarily. I don't really have any intention of calling anybody out, but putting it through some actual lab testing and doing some actual comparisons, and and see what we're looking at, because we had a couple people do that here in Michigan, but it's been a long time since anybody's really stepped up to the plate and spent the money, because it's expensive to do that shit.
Right? I think it'd be funny. I'd be willing to be on a panel because I think it'd be funny.
I think people would be horrified how many people fail for pest and
absolutely, dude. Yep.
Yeah.
I think they would be just very disappointed.
You gotta know. I mean, oh, man, fuck, that would be bad.
Yeah, it would be. It would be tough.
You're probably talking a 2 out of 10 pass.
Oh shit! Damn.
It would probably. Yeah, I would agree. It would probably start coming down to.
Yeah, not everybody.
Throw a dart at a dartboard.
Not everybody takes pride in their work, unfortunately.
No, most certainly.
Yeah. Well, and that's
so that's
part of making money and needing.
here would be the
Yeah.
variable in that. If we're going to do a panel like that, are we only going to do good product and only going to test good product? Because we start throwing in all the other trash as well, we're going to start noticing the difference.
Maybe you do a voting process and have people vote on their favorite brands.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Either it's got to be like the biggest brands, the most popular brands, or the best brands. You know what I mean? Something along those lines. Because if you're knowingly testing trash, if I go out and buy
that's kind
32 carts for $100, I think I know what I'm getting. I think I know what I'm getting. Maybe a lot of people don't, but a lab test isn't going to help them.
The funny part about this whole thing is I just had the realization. Like, I was thinking the whole time when you said calling somebody out, I was totally thinking about the panelist side. I didn't even really think about the processing side, like calling out the process. I know everybody else did, but I didn't even think about calling out the processors themselves as in having shitty shit.
Yeah,
I was totally thinking about how funny it would be just to see the panelists fail or pass. Man, that was a weird perspective. Like, I just had the realization. You go back and look at it.
It might be the kick they need to go back and clean their fucking grow up.
Yeah, no shit, right?
Hey man, it's I've seen it happen on Instagram. You know what I mean? Here in Michigan, it happened to quite a few brands, but a lot of them aren't around anymore. Some of them are commercial facilities now, and everything in between. But yeah, actually, I didn't think about that, Pedro. I was thinking about definitely doing like a blind taste test or whatever. But we could actually do that here live. That's not a terribly unheard of. I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe we'll talk about that off air.
Yeah, we can hash that out later. Yeah, it was just so funny that the different views and perspectives, and that I was only seeing one of them.
I have a lot of friends that we do this thing where we call it a pyramid, where we have the same common goal at the top here, but we're coming at it from such different angles or perspectives that sometimes we don't even think we have the same common goal, right? But if you just take a step back, and really look at it, often you have the same common goal.
Oh, I'm sure. I think every one of us on this panel has the same common goal.
Smoking good clean hash.
And there's multiple different approaches and whatnot here as well. So smoking and or medicating with clean medicine as well, because like tonight, as you'll see, the eyes start getting smaller and smaller. I start decarbing. That's where we were talking about, is separating out the food grade, right? Like, I'll smoke my premium rosin here, and then when I get rosin that I either don't like or I consider lower grade hash, basically hash that I don't like, I decarb it, mix it with coconut oil, eat the shit, and fuck.
Oh yeah, that fat gets it in there real quick.
Oh man, you mix it with like a full pill or almost two will get you the same amount of medicated, let's just say, as one that's mixed with coconut oil. Like, it makes a big difference. Just save a lot of product.
That's wild.
It's fun to go. Hey, man, I was on a stream last night, and I was, what was that, about 2,000 milligrams deep in edibles, and then dabbing and whatnot. And I at the end, I was almost incoherent. I just couldn't. There was nothing good coming out. There was no value coming out of my mouth at all.
The gears quit turning.
It was a fun stream.
It happens.
That's a good time.
Hey, what do you guys think? Here's another variable. Ooh, interesting thought. Both sides of the fence, but here's a variable. And I guess I'll ask everybody here on the panel, because I think everybody here smokes solventless. Cured or fresh frozen, or not fresh frozen, fresh press?
What's live rosin?
Well, live rosin would be considered a plant that's harvested, frozen,
Hopefully
and
the
then
only
processed.
rosin.
Yeah. But we're speaking consistency. So we're speaking cured versus pressed and jarred and potentially vacuum sealed and frozen.
Honestly, I want it ASAP. Yeah, I just want it as soon as possible.
So you want it fresh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I prefer cured.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah.
Cured for me.
Okay. Rex?
Yeah, I'm a cure guy. I do some crazy cures. It's an art form for me.
You fucking do.
I
And
love
so let's cross the fence real quick. Is that a double consistency even a possibility with hydrocarbon extraction?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, same principles. Sugar in something, like jam in something. You know, growing some rosin diamonds is kind of the same as growing solvent diamonds as far as, you know,
Do
the
we
way you go about it.
consider fresh versus cured the same in the same group as we consider jams as well? And jams and diamonds, obviously.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by cured. Are you talking more just
exactly.
like a batter? You know?
Yeah. I guess when
we're talking any kind of cure.
Cold, I guess you're right. I guess there's the variable, right? So I was speaking cold cure, and so then the cure would broaden and encapsulate the processing into jams as well. So my question, I guess, was let's offer 3 of them: cold cure, fresh press, or like a jam, like a post-processed jam.
I would take a jam. A jam's going to have the highest terpene percentage. It's going to be the tastiest.
Yeah, that's why I said the freshest, because I'm so confused at what all these terms mean, to be honest with you guys. I'm just going to follow
like
Rex's lead.
It's like a sugar. It's a heat cure, you know?
Well, a heat cure, but it has the highest terpene? What?
Well, it's kind of you want to explain it, Pedro? I mean, it's kind of like you heat it. You're heating up a closed environment, so the terpenes are evaporating, and then you're letting them cool. They crash back down, so there's not really a whole lot of loss.
Are they actually crashing back down?
I would imagine. Where are they going to go?
Well, when you open the jar, my thinking is once you vaporize something, it's not necessarily like water, just going to turn back into a liquid or a solid or something, you know?
Like, you think as it cools, it'll stay as a vapor?
Well, it depends on what temperature you're cooling it to, because think about hydrocarbons, right? Like, we got to get those suckers pretty damn cold to convert from a gas to a liquid. So I mean, there's a broad range of terpenes that, are volatile at different temperatures. Listen, I do the same thing. I crash out my sauce in a mason jar, right? And keep the lid on. Like, it is. But are we, especially if I know, okay, so I might go 75, 80, 85 degrees tops, like to do that process. I know in the squishing process, we might be getting 160, 170 degrees, in the squish. Not that high in that jarring process, but I'm just wondering if are they volatile to the point where they're not crashing back into the solution? Do we have the science on that?
Remember one of the early videos we watched with low temp when our freeze dryers were getting terpenes back out of the freeze dryers.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that they do turn back into a liquid, and it doesn't take much more than room temperature, it looks like.
What I've noticed testing wise is I've had a fresh press, a cold cure batter, and a jam all from the same press, just collected differently and cured differently. And the terpene content climbed as that cure went on. Like the fresh press, I think, was about 5-6%. The cold cure was close to 10. And then that jam was knocking on like 12-13. I just did that a couple times, though. I don't know if that is enough to justify what I'm saying, but
Well, I'm wondering.
I think
how that works.
something happens.
Right. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, I wish I was a chemist.
Dude, I know that's right. This is why they hire those damn PhDs, so they can.
I just have I have the caveman hands-on experience. Unfortunately,
we just need someone here doing arithmetic now.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at. Is we definitely need more. We definitely need more testing and more people that are willing
testing. That's my biggest help for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more people that are willing, like in the commercialized side of things, doing these kind of tests, running through these different variables, if you will, takes a lot of money. Kind of unfortunately, kind of a lot of wasted money.
They're all optional tests.
So. Yeah. But I guess my question along that path was, with hydrocarbons, how many, because we know we can come up with fresh press, cold cure, and a jam, a post-process jam, minimally, with solventless. How many and what are they, consistencies can you come up with hydrocarbon extraction?
Oh, man. I mean, I'd say it's pretty close to the same, to be honest. You got your slabs would be like your fresh press, I guess, kind of like a rough crystalline type structure. And then you got your sugar would be like your jam, your diamonds. Your batter would be like your cold cure. What do you think?
Is there a crumble?
Yeah, I mean, some rosin strains are just they just come out naturally dry. Yeah. Just like hydrocarbon, it's the same way.
100%, dude. Yeah,
you're like, I've been battering stuff my whole life. Why is this getting dry? You know what I mean? There's nothing you could do about it.
Yeah, and I know Pedro hates the look of those types of batters, but man, it's just sometimes it's the strain, And I think ultimately the variable is in creating that consistency. Well, we've talked about it before, right? There's 3 of them. There's time, temperature, and atmospheric exposure.
Yeah.
But I think temperature is the most extreme of those 3 in this specific instance in terms of consistency, because, I mean, it takes a lot to convert a live resin into a shedder, wouldn't you say, Rex?
Oh, fuck yeah. Good.
Like, not that I would ever do that, but like,
unless it's a terpless plant.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, God,
and it's just THCA.
Yeah, exactly. But that's
no. You know how you do that? You just make some diamonds, and then you just melt all your diamonds down and say, "There you go, slab."
Yeah, I'm keeping the terps for vape pens, but here you go. Here's your slab.
I don't know if I answered the question myself, but I most certainly, almost exclusively, except that last dab that you saw me take there, prefer a cold cured rosin over anything. And I'm almost exclusively, because I haven't found, let me say I don't know, I haven't found anyone that processes good BHO, if you will, I guess, or solvent processing that around me to be a good supply. So I pretty much exclusively smoke rosin.
That's the problem, man.
And it's cold cured.
It's great though, isn't it?
we need to talk and do some trades, Rex.
Yeah, I need to get over there and check out
the
area.
For sure.
I know.
You're welcome down anytime, brother. Next month's gonna be pretty freaking busy. We got plants coming down. I'm gonna get up on the hill at the end of the month here and do some elk hunting. So about that time of year.
When does that start? November?
I think our season is October 28th through November 4th, if I remember the dates correctly.
Okay. 1 week, huh?
No, it's 3 weeks.
No. You get.
Yeah. We get almost a full week. It's 5-6 days, something like that, whatever it is.
Okay. We our deer, whitetail season just started here 6 days ago in Michigan, archery until I guess November 15th for about 15 days. And then it goes back to archery. And then I guess in total depending on where you are, you get 4 months of archery hunting for whitetail.
I was going to say, I think I remember archery hunting being very long.
Yeah.
This little kitty is just a fucking pistol, by the way.
Yeah, they can hunt for a long time up here for a lot of different animals.
For sure.
That's wild. When is the elk rut here?
It's got to be right at the same time, right?
Yeah, about that time. Honestly, it variables. We want now that we're on a different topic,
Changes.
but it's the basically the time of year that it is up there. So it's how cold is it? How much snow do you have? They start responding to that more than they do to they don't know, they don't have a calendar,
right?
They're not like, oh shit, it's fucking September 15th.
Right.
So when it starts getting colder, they start wanting to get it. So
makes sense.
September 15th, remember that.
It's a big animal.
Yeah,
it is. It's what I think I've shot 3 of them now in the 13 years or so I've been here, and man, it's
so cool.
It's an overwhelming experience.
What kind of rifle you use for that?
I'm sorry?
You shot bulls, boys?
Oh no, all one of them ended up being a bull. So I've shot the 2 cows, and then the third one that I shot was a young. It was a young. It was calf.
Man, they are aggressive.
And they don't consider the calf. They consider a calf just a cow. So,
okay.
But it ended up being a bull calf. So.
Right, he was just a little guy.
So I have got a bull technically, but the baby bull, I guess.
I was curious to know what do you use to hunt them?
I shoot a 270.
Okay.
A 270
Winchester
rifle, bolt action. What the fuck is mine? I think mine is a. God damn it! I don't remember the make of mine now. I could go look for it if you want, but
it's probably not the best idea to bring it on the stream, but
It's not the right thing.
I just thought of the implications.
Yeah, I'll bust us right away.
Yeah, for real. I'm I never hunted elk, so I'm curious, but I've seen them out in the wild, even up here in northern Michigan, and seen the moose out in the mountain country, towards you guys. But yeah, never shot much more than bigger than a deer, I guess. You ever do any like bear hunting? Is there bear hunting out by you guys?
There is bear hunting out here.
Yeah, all the time when you have elk tags, you can usually buy a bear tag. Usually.
Okay.
Yeah, the bear tags.
It's like a crazy lottery for bear tags up here.
Bro, it's you get 5. There's 5 tags per year or something like that. Well, actually, that might be elk or something. There's some lottery that's literally 5 tags per year.
Yeah, this one's like per county and based on population and all kinds of crap.
Yeah, to be fair, DNR does do what some would consider, I think a lot of people would consider a fairly decent job at like kind of tracking all that populations and stuff. They even sent out an email like 2-3 weeks ago that was like, hey guys, we need to have a chat. Y'all are shooting too many bucks. In fact, there's only been 1 year since 2001 in the last 22 years that we've harvested more doe than we've had bucks. Kill a damn doe. It's an overpopulation problem.
Man.
So let's get back to a variable, cannabis variable question. In regards to, again, both sides of the fence, because I think this is kind of turning into pretty much a processing discussion. Both hydrocarbon and solventless extraction of outdoor plants. Go. Because boy, I just think I just asked a whole hell of a lot with just that.
Is there a question there?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot tougher for solventless, I'll tell you that for sure.
So an outdoor plant is going to have a lot more dust, dander, debris, bug problems, poop, spiders, spider webs, a lot of stuff. Yeah. There's an H in there if you didn't know. And so an indoor where you can regulate that a lot better. Like an indoor plant, I think we can all agree can generally be, I mean, of course you can make your outdoor plants clean. Don't get me wrong. But generally an outdoor plant is going to have much more of this stuff than indoor. You know, and they say greenhouses. Yes, of course, greenhouses, but you bring in different air and different this and that. What are we doing here? Looking at heavy ice.
Yeah, Heavy Ice RX. He's
doing his pre-dunk.
Michigan. Yeah, he's pre-dunking. I just wanted to play this in the background because it sounded like you were talking about washing. He talks about that. I'll get through a couple different videos while you're talking.
So I guess that would be another thing we could ask, but that adds so much fucking labor and the potential for mold and PM. So definitely be careful when doing this. And the plant, the way it grows, will hold moisture differently based on the different variables of how sticky it is, how dense it is, and blah, 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 blah. But I guess where I was going with that is, in general, an outdoor plant is going to have more debris and whatnot, of all kinds, than an indoor plant, because an indoor plant, a good grower can keep track and clean their indoor environment better than you can in an outdoor environment. So, having said that, of course, there's these dipping options and there's these washing options, but again, on both sides of the fence, if we're doing the dipping, how does that affect the post-processing? If we're not doing the dunking, well, I'm gonna make up my own words. I always do this. How is that changing the post-processing? Solventless versus hydrocarbon.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely not ideal for solventless to be, beating up the plants, like that. In my opinion.
So you don't think I should wash my outdoor crop?
Man.
Because how else are you going to filter all that stuff that comes off,
What's your situation with your outdoor crop? You got dirt roads?
Oh, well, for me personally, yeah, I'm dirt roads. I'm trying to find the post where he talks about this specifically, but he gives examples from, everything from that to overzealous mowing neighbors. You know what I mean? Those guys that just mow religiously 3 times a week and are just
so tough.
Yeah. It's like it could be anything, Oh, and then the rains that brought here in Michigan that brought all that smoke and crap down from Canada, from the forest fires. Like how much of that is on your plants? There's certainly on your outdoor plants, there's a lot, and there's got to be some level of filtration.
That's just so unfortunate to just be put in that position in the first place. I don't know, because to me, like when you harvest that plant for fresh frozen for solventless, it's all about being like as delicate as you can be. You know what I mean? At least,
but it's also about getting the best quality out of it. So, if there's no happy medium, or if you're not willing to take the loss, is it just solventless only suited for indoors?
No, man, I think honestly, I think indoors and greenhouse are ideal. I think outdoor can be done. It's just tough with those variables. I've washed outdoor that didn't have that peppered look, like it had a bunch of. Pedro knows what I'm talking about with the little pepper and the bubble hash. It's like you can actually see the dirt and dust in the bubble hash after it's dry. But I've washed outdoor gardens that had nice clean. I almost was tempted to pull some melt, some full melt, but it's just all about how they can keep it clean. I've never had a good experience with doing the dunks personally, but I haven't really done it that much, to be honest.
Maybe we just harvest after a heavy rain and call it even,
I mean, it's kind of the same thing, man. Yeah, I know. I just don't know how much. I don't know how much abuse those heads can take. Like, how much loss are you taking?
Here's the thing. I mean, I feel like all you solventless washers should know how much abuse they can take, but that's the thing. You're
fresh.
doing it
It's hard to know.
you're doing an
Yeah.
ice cold, container. So it's like you are trying to knock those heads off. Where in this case, you're trying not to, right? And you want a water that's not hot enough to like affect it in a way that it's gonna, affect trichomes or the greasiness or anything like that. You don't want it cold enough for signing up trichomes. You're literally just trying to wash the buds. And I will say, cannabis is very hydrophobic. I mean, if you've ever just like sprinkled water on top of a flower, like most of it beads off,
up.
Yeah. So,
Sure.
It's the other stuff, the bugs, the fired rain dust, the neighbors mowing.
Yeah, man, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Gosh, what if you're so close? There's ash. Damn.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
I mean, the variables.
I guess that's your only choice, to be honest.
Yeah, for real.
It
seems like
unless you're just gonna, unless you're planning on just blasting it and not running it for solventless. But man, I don't know. Yeah, that's tough.
I guess the variables start coming in with filtration, because when I said outdoor, I'm a very literal guy. I meant outside.
Yeah, like literally.
I didn't exclude or separate whether they were open air or in a greenhouse, because both of those to me are outdoor.
Oh, okay.
So filtration to me becomes the big variable. When you have a greenhouse, how are you bringing your air in? And how much are you controlling? How much are you then turning your outdoor grow into basically an indoor grow?
Yeah.
And in that case, all of my stuff, most of my stuff, I'll say 99% of the critical kush that anyone has tried has been an outdoor grow to me, which would be in a greenhouse. It does have mostly filtered intake air, and I do a pretty damn good job of controlling the environment, but 99% of it has been outdoor. And controversially, but man, there's another variable we can talk about. My half dry, I call it, my 4 day dry, depending on your conditions, variables. 99% of it of the critical kush everybody's tried has been that half dry.
Yeah.
So we started doing that at Eden. We started doing a half dry, and we're noticing different terpene profiles, obviously because of the maturation of the heads, because the extra 3 or 4 days rather than just throwing them straight into the freezer.
Yeah.
And the yields.
Well, yeah, you're losing a little bit of water there,
dude. Well, yeah. I mean, you lose water, but I mean, the yields of the hash versus doing fresh frozen
greater,
is astronomical.
Yeah,
dude. I mean,
it's almost knocking on a cured yield.
So you don't want to take your plants to a full dry by any means. You're basically waiting for, and more testing needs to be done. I don't know whether this is true on every cultivar. We're going to start doing small batch testing on a bunch of different cultivars, because we've always washed them fresh frozen. So we're going to start doing a 3-4 day dry. But I've always called it the half dry because you have to put a name on it, right?
Yeah.
But it's really just I've got to go out there and check them daily, because it's kind of like when the outside of the medium size buds start breaking the leaves just a little bit, starts getting just a little bit crunchy. But it's also, you can go up and you can bend a stem and see whether or not they snap the right size stem. So this is where the experience comes in, as to when you want to buck them and put them into the freezer. But yeah, we're noticing by changing those variables, astronomical fucking differences.
That's crazy. What is your how is your bubble to rosin yield with that cure versus the live? Is it pressing as good?
Good question. I don't know that answer yet. Because we just did that.
Too.
We just did the first harvest of the tests that we did. And I think I'm going to be pressing them next week. So I should have some of the answer. Yeah, I should have some of that answer next week. That I didn't even really consider that variable, you know, what that result would do.
Yeah, just the overall quality of the bubble hash, you know what I mean?
For sure. And we usually don't test, our bubble hash, so to speak, up at Eden, because I mean, unfortunately, that requires taking it out of the building and testing it, you know. So here's a question: do I look for a moisture meter parameter or an artistic feel? Honestly, it's an artistic feel at that point in time. It really is. I would say, if I'm going to put a more accurate term, a third dry. You know, again, depending on your conditions, depending on your heat and your humidity.
Are you guys going a little bit cooler than normal?
If I could control that variable more, you know, I don't have great control over my temperatures in my drying room. Unfortunately, that needs modification big time. Yes, I'd love to be. I'd love to be down in the 50s for temperature and really for humidity as well, because then you can really go like those 3-4 day dries.
And then you can take it a little slow.
Yeah,
but man,
I run a 60-60 in my dry.
Yep, there you go.
Here.
That's the way I think everyone was taught, really. Right?
Yeah, exactly. 60, right.
60.
Yeah, being able to keep it right there is nice. That's why the UP is great. That's half my year.
I like to try to keep it a little bit colder when I do the third dry, because obviously there's going to be a loss in terpenes because we're exposing it to air for an extended period of time. So I want to minimize that as much as possible, and part of that is keeping it cold. You know.
Yeah. I've set 60 as my upper limit. Like I never, from harvest, I never let the buds get above 60. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm in at least that temperature or below.
Yeah.
We're definitely, like I said, noticing different terpenes. I don't think we've got the testing back on this batch yet again, of the terpene contents, but I would assume that there's a degradation in terps, like there's a loss in overall terpene content. It would just make sense to me.
It's not. I don't think it's gonna be that much, man. I bet you'd be surprised if it's more than like 2%.
I hope I am, because that's one of the biggest arguments that everybody has.
You can keep it cold enough. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that's like I said, one of the biggest things that people have to say about it. But to me, the change in terpenes is kind of what I'm looking for. You know,
something
just
different.
just like when we do a cure, the change in the fresh press to the cold cure is what I'm after. So,
and why is that? Because again, I talk about how I want something as fresh as possible, and other than maybe smoking flour, right? I don't want to smoke fresh frozen, but I would love to smoke some nicely cured dried flour, even at that 60-60 like Superior's talking about. Even if it was going in a jar and then in my bong or a joint or whatever. But there also is a limit to how long I think that lasts too, even if it's cured and stored properly. But the change from a fresh frozen product to a cured product, even if it started off as fresh frozen, what is it in that you guys are looking for in particular? Is it just the change in the terpene profile?
Yeah, just that nucleation, man, that change.
Wait, is it the nucleation, so the change in consistency, or is it the change in terpene profile?
The terpene profile definitely changes as that batters.
New terpenes, they seem to smash together and you get something different. I don't know if that's at all accurate, but from a smoker's perspective,
It's a big change for sure, taste wise.
Yeah, it's just more mature flavors. It depends on the cultivar. Some of
Yeah.
them I like fresh, but some of them I like that long, slow cure.
And then once that cure is perfect, you can preserve it from there, you know. Seal
Yeah,
that sucker up, throw it in the freezer, you know, and it'll be just like the day it changed.
You know, the funny thing is that my brain is going nuts over here. If you just watch me looking back and forth, there's two different things going on here. I am curing the plant before I turn it into rosin and then cure my rosin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's interesting.
Stacked curing.
Just an interesting thought. You know,
refining.
Think about those fucking variables. So what are you asking for, Girly? Are you asking why I prefer the curing of the flower to my half dry, or are you asking me
I'm
why
asking why you prefer a cured jar of rosin versus just say fresh? I don't know what the term is, but you know, something more.
So yeah, the fresh frozen versus the cured flower would be the correct thing, and then there'd be fresh press would be the fresh product, the fresh rosin, because it freshly comes off the press, gets it into a jar and or freezer as quickly as possible. And then there's the cured rosin. I think
is that cured rosin also put into a freezer or something right after, or is it like, how do you cure a rosin real quick?
Good. There you go. There's another good.
Oh man, yeah.
Quick.
Well, that's what makes.
I was looking for a quick explanation,
unique.
but not like cure it quickly.
So generally, you want to cure as cold as possible, but the colder you cure, the longer it takes to cure. You know, so you definitely have to keep it in an airtight jar and keep it out of light.
Oxidation away.
Yeah. So going back to the original question, I think, because I kind of forgot where I was going with that. Number one, the consistency of the rosin. Fresh press is very fucking snappy. It pisses me off because it's all over my fucking carpet. You know, it's just a very shattery consistency to deal with. You know, so or it's sticky. You'll end up seeing me have to spin my goddamn dab tool to spin up a big, globber. So in that regard, dealing with a cured product, especially something that's not dry, as we were referring to earlier, when it's more of a
crumble.
Yeah, well, more of a waxy-ish kind of, consistency. It pulls out of the jar easier, it's just much easier to handle. Now, in regards to terpene content and whatnot, I feel like the fresh frozen to me is more intense, I don't know necessarily why, if maybe like Rex was saying earlier, he's noticed that his fresh to his cold cure to his jam keep increasing in content or in terpene content. I honestly think that a lot of this, this other variable as well is personal preference, kind of like just fucking because. Why do you like smoking BHO? Just fucking because. Why do you like smoking flower buds? Just fucking.
I mean, I could tell you.
It's like food. Everyone likes different things to eat, man. It's the same thing.
I like the description earlier, though. Like the fresh, the terpenes seem sharper. They're almost. I just like the when fresh.
When fresh, okay.
Yeah, and then cold cure kind of tones it down just a little bit. It's just takes that edge off. I don't know.
I wonder what that edge is. That's what
those lipids. Those lipids get to change, and it makes it a much smoother hit. That change into a batter, the lipids help that happen. I feel like it just makes it so much smoother.
Well, that's one of the things I've noticed about pretty much all solventless products is they do still contain those lipids, because I see it on my nail, you know, in my banger. Like, and you don't always necessarily see that with a good, clean BHO. So
yeah, it's all going to be about that head, you know. The head,
right there. You guys are almost concentrating the waxy layer as well as the contents of it. You know what I mean? So it's at a certain point, it's the process of bypassing, or I guess squeezing out the contents of that waxy layer and leaving that behind. What are the methods of doing that? Is it like, how are you leaving the fats and lipids behind? Because in the case of hydrocarbon, it's temperatures for the most part. And your guys, in the solventless case, I should say, is it the screen, the bag that you're using? Does that have anything to do with it?
Lipids are tough. I mean, it's going to be more finding the strains that work, that don't have those super high concentrations of lipids, you know what I mean? And you'll know when you work with a plant, you know, by the way it washes, the way it presses. And that's just like part of the struggle, I think, of running solventless and pheno hunting for solventless, is it's such a tough thing to find a really good solventless strain. It's not like you pop 5 seeds and 3 of them are going to be solventless champions. You know what I mean? It's a fight. You got to pop, you know what I mean? It's a lot tougher, I feel like, to find that perfect head structure to make a nice clean extract, solventless at least.
I'm glad I came in when I did on this regarding the fats and lipids content. I wish there was, and then there probably is, education and experience, right? I wish there was a way to tell prior to the rosin stage, you know, and or the decarbing stage, when you've got a plant with a too high of a wax, you know, fatty lipid content.
Yeah.
We just ran a cultivar, and you know, I'm going to kind of keep things quiet as much as I have to. We just washed a cultivar, and we're taking it to carts, and we noticed during the cart, the conversion, you know, the heating and the conversion, that it started forming what almost looked like it was forming like crashed THCA crystals, you know, crashing into a jam inside the jar. And we ended up leaving the jar in the refrigerator over the night, you know, until the next day, because we were trying to process it, figure out what the fuck was going on. And overnight it settled. It ended up settling to the bottom of the jar. And so it gave me the ability to take a tool and reach down and feel the consistency of what settled, you know, whether it was a sediment, whether it was a THCA crystal, you know, crystalline kind of a substance, or whether it was, or what it was. And when I dug into it, you could see it was an absolute fatty, waxy lipid content. You know, so what we ended up doing at that point,
how could you tell?
How could you tell?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a white,
it's like grease that sets
oil,
up.
Greasy. Yep. It would be like I wish I was more into cooking.
So it didn't feel like hard or like crunchy.
No,
it
was basically the same consistency as the melted warm rosin.
Okay.
But just in a white, filmy consistency in the bottom of the jar. So what we ended up doing was pouring off all of the top content that didn't have that. We ended up using it kind of to our advantage at that point in time. You know, I don't think it was fully converted as well. So we ended up using that to our advantage, removed it, and to put it into our cartridges. Now, whether or not, like going back to Rex's conversation earlier, or his point earlier, are those fats, what, you know, lipids, are they required for any reason, you know? And
right,
then,
like, would it be better to stir it in again?
You know, Well,
I mean, it's a fine line. You don't want to have a whole bunch of lipids, but you want to have enough to make the extract, the flavor smooth. You know what I mean? Because high concentrations of lipids isn't good for you, for sure.
So you don't want it to be all greasy. You just need a little bit.
Yeah, vaporizing lipids isn't really like super good for you. But when it goes a little bit goes with terpenes, it just helps dull those, because terpenes on their own are super bitter. You know what I mean?
Really
Anyone who does, if you do terpene isolation, right? I mean, terpenes on their own with no lipids in them are they're a little bitter for sure.
Man, there's definitely temperature becomes a variable in when it comes to consumption. If you have a very high terpene content rosin, hash, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and you hit it at a very low temperature, it is going to be very much more abrasive, if you will, to your lungs because of the terpene content. I actually prefer in some dabs when I'm hitting them, when I don't want to fucking take 18 hits and die afterwards, I prefer a little bit warmer dab
and just get it over with.
Yeah, because I
hurry up.
I end up getting virtually the same amount of terpene, exposure experience when I take the dab, but I don't get those fucking 18 dabs at that low temperature with the high terpene content. Like,
fighting the coughs all the time.
Terps are great. They could just be they could be a little rough on the insides. That's all.
They're very volatile.
Yeah. What about? I don't know if this has anything to do with lipids, but what about when they burn your nose really bad? Like, what's going on with that?
I don't know.
Like in a specific terp, or it seems like sometimes it's like when you get one just a little too hot.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it has a high terp content of something, then it just like fucking burns your nose.
Maybe your sinus is like sensitive to a certain terpene or something. Sometimes I'll sneeze when after I take a dab. Something will get in my sinus and I'll sneeze real quick.
It's like, excuse me, protective coating.
Yeah, exactly.
I noticed that I get pretty phlegmy too in the throat sometimes after a dab, and it's just like it just wants to keep on recoating. Like, excuse
that's just
me,
us getting old, I think.
Is it?
We've been dabbing too long.
I think it's a good dab when my nose is running and I have to find a tissue. That's usually a sign. That's a good dab.
Right.
The drool, got to blow the nose, clear the sinuses.
Oh, I haven't drooled in a while, but maybe I can get there.
It's funny how different dabs can totally affect you different ways. Sometimes it just gets you. Like sometimes they'll just make you sweat like fucking nuts, and then other times it's not a big deal. You know?
It's crazy how different strains, you have different reactions to different strains. It's wild.
Absolutely. I think it's the different cultivars contain different cannabinoids, terpenes,
It's just the endless combinations,
Yeah.
It's endless.
Well, and there's the whole factor of, each person reacts a little bit differently, to each thing. So
so that it just becomes an endless amount of variables. Yeah.
So walking down that road, man, I really want to get for Growley's input on this as well. Regarding the personal effects, different things affect different people. What do you guys feel about indica sativa? Man, I love the look on Rex's face when I asked that. That was fucking priceless. Fucking priceless.
That's a sales pitch right there, buddy.
Because I think people need, and I wanted to go back to
cannabis has been around too long. There's no indica or sativas left.
I wanted to go back to temperature as well, because I think a lot of the people that come in here kind of come in for a little bit of an education as well, So I want to come back to dabbing temperature, but yeah, when it comes to indica sativa, number one, let's go down two different paths. So there's probably multiple paths. growing for growing. We're talking about indica sativa. Growing plant physical attributes. Is there any difference?
If you're asking me, I mean, that's initially what we based it off of, was the fact that a lot of them were these long, skinny fingered varieties, and then we had these broadleaf varieties. Some of them were short and squatty, some were long and extended, you know. Those were kind of typical examples of those quote unquote sativa and indica type plants, as we knew it. As we've continued to, like we mentioned earlier in the show, over the course of the decades, breed constantly, continuously, and very zealously. You know, we've kind of hybridized just about everything. And so now, if we're still talking sativa and indica, the only things I can put a label on those two things or compare them to, I guess, is the effects of the plant and the strain that you're getting. And that, my friends, comes from the terpenes. So ultimately, yeah, we could call it sativa or indica, but ultimately that's based on the terpene profile of the plant, and we can only really figure that out by, well, either lab testing it or smoking it. So
it would be your reaction to the terpene
100%.
content.
Plus, wouldn't also cannabinoid content of that particular plant play?
It's the combination.
Right.
It's the combination.
Yeah, the point at which you harvest it
has.
Because I think a lot of people, and unfortunately, because I've seen packaging, I know a lot of people request one or the other.
And the old, yeah.
And I think
they've been trained to.
Yeah, and I think they're getting it on false, like they don't really know what the definitions are. You know, I think they're getting kind of false.
Yeah. Here's the ultimate test for exactly what we're talking about. Like exactly what you guys are talking about. If you go to a dispensary and you buy an edible and it says whether or not it's sativa, hybrid, or indica, you know it's full of shit.
And it's made from distillate.
Yeah, especially if it's made from distillate. I mean, but even then,
ain't
like,
that some shit?
Yeah, I mean, like the only way we're talking about getting this effect is through the entourage effect, the modulating effect that the terpenes and other cannabinoids have on the THC. And ultimately, when it comes to an edible, even a vape cartridge in most cases, and some other products, topicals would be another instance, it's usually just decarboxylated THC. And if there are other scents, I'll call it, added to it, you know, it's usually not terpenes from the cannabis plant. Usually it's a botanical derived terpene from a different plant, which most plants create terpenes, or it's you know, like for instance, in my own topical, I'm using a food grade you know, hydrocarbon extraction concentrate that I've decarboxylated, but I'm using essential oils, tea tree, lavender, and eucalyptus to get the effects I'm looking for in my topical. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like those terpenes are modulating the effect. You know what I mean? It's like a whole different thing. And so, yeah, I think it's like, just trust the profile that strain gave you. If you're trying to alter it or do something else with it, well, maybe just grow a different strain. You know, there's a lot of them out there, guys. They give a lot of different effects because there's a seemingly unlimited amount of combinations of these cannabinoids and terpenes.
Yeah, you're ain't
Would
kidding.
you say variables?
So many variables, dude. So many variables.
I mean, like whenever I'm in the dispo and I'm talking to a patient or something, I always tell them I always go back to food for some reason, but I always tell them to treat stuff like food. Like if you're looking for flour, look at it, smell it. Your body's going to tell you whether it wants it or not. You know what I mean? It's going to smell good to you, or it's not going to smell good to you. It's going to look good, or it's not going to look good. You know.
When we talk about natural medicine, I mean, isn't it kind of talking about food? You know.
I mean, that's man. I mean, everything.
They run like a same path. You know.
Yeah. it's just your body's natural reaction to something.
But
And you might try it and maybe it does give you an effect you don't like, but I mean that's just how it goes. Try something,
true.
you know, try something different.
Yeah. There's a lot of options out there.
Hold on, enjoy the ride, and don't do it again.
You'll remember what you don't like. You'll remember a strain if you have an experience you don't, and it's not like it's going to be that bad. You know, it's just going to be.
The unfortunate thing is here in like the provisioning centers in Michigan is in most cases you're not even allowed to smell
that's
the
unfortunate.
medicine that you're going to access. You know, you can't look at it. I mean, I guess you can look at it, but you can't really touch it. You can't get your hands on it. You can't really get your nose on it. And it's like, man, it's disappointing, and it's like so it really takes away from that medical process that we kind of came up in.
I mean, even here we get the concentrate samples are out, so you can even get a sniff and take a look at the concentrates and everything. So
I believe
it's a really nice experience.
Unfortunately, don't we have to label as indica sativa here in Colorado? I'm not in the packaging department, but I believe we have to unfortunately label.
They do. They have to label the flower.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no terpene testing requirements, right?
No, that's all optional. So, like, if you see people doing all this terpene stuff, they're paying out of pocket just for their own knowledge. You know what I mean? They're not. There's no gain on that for them financially.
Hell no.
There's only loss.
And it's well, the only gain is educating their customers and just what we're talking about, right? And I've brought this up before on multiple shows in the past few years, and I feel like it's got to have changed at this point. But as far as I'm aware, Alaska is the only state in the union that requires terpene testing labeled on every cannabis product.
Yeah. I mean, you should be doing it if you're going through all that work to make a killer product. You know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. If it's not an edible, if it's not a topical, it's something that you are trying to grow and preserve the terpenes in, then I would hope that you would present that, and
now
that should be something to stand upon,
especially for like some rosin or some live resin. Like, I mean, if you're pumping out trim runs, I can understand not wanting to give people
look at this
full
6%
panel on
CBG,
$8 grant. You know what I mean?
But what do you guys feel about people purchasing rosin or hash? Let's just say hash, period. Based on THC percentage and or terpene percentage overall.
Oh man, I don't know. I've never been into the potency stuff, to be honest.
Well, back in the day, wasn't there like some 15% variance that it could be? Is it still that way?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like,
it's plus or minus 10% in Michigan.
Yeah, it's 15 here in Colorado, I think.
Unless
it's changed.
So it's bullshit. I mean, seriously, it's like you could say
no. You gotta just go by your you gotta go. If you're a patient, you gotta just go by your natural instinct. You gotta go.
Yeah,
you're lucky enough here in Colorado to be able to go and look at it. So
you're unfortunately basically just gotta try it.
Especially when you're talking in percentages of 20 to 30%. I mean, that's literally like, okay, it could have nothing. It could say ass.
And I tell you what, most places in Colorado, if you got something and you had it was just so horrible that you couldn't stand it, you could go back to that dispo and more than likely they're gonna help you out.
I thought Rex, you were gonna say that you could go back to that lab and tell them to change the results as a grower, not a
I know. Dude, I was like, as a patient, like if you got something that you didn't like, most dispos are so cool around here that they'll, they'd hook you up with something, Places around here are about their patients, that's for sure. That's why I do kind of like this place.
That's that medical vibe though, man.
Yeah.
It for sure is. And it's been really fun. We get samples every month, a couple weeks or months. I don't know. Every once in a while, they tell me to go pick up my damn samples because I got a bunch of samples there. Mm-hmm. So when I go into the dispo, and that's really, honestly, the only time I go into dispos. I don't go. Yeah, I don't buy hash.
I used to. I don't anymore too. Man.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. Usually, if I want a selection of something, I'll call up one of my buddies and we'll do a little bit of trade. Yeah. So going into these shops is number one. It's fun for me, and it's also I try not to be a dick about it, but I also try to educate the staff there, because I think the education is like one of the biggest things. By educating them more, then hopefully they're going to educate the customer more.
Yeah.
You know. So,
100%.
What do you think about this as a variable? Temperature when opening a jar, as in opening a room temp jar versus opening a jar that you just pulled out of a, I want to say, very cold refrigerator, damn near freezer.
Depends on when you plan on putting it back, I think.
Say it again.
So it depends on when you plan on putting it back. If it's staying out, I would go for it.
Why does that make a difference?
Because I feel like the biggest mistake people make is taking out, I would say, more out of the fridge than the freezer, is taking what they want out and then immediately putting that cap back on, and that just locks in a layer of moisture in there, hardcore. Versus like if you were going to keep it out, just keep it out. Yeah. Now with the freezer, I think that's a different story, but with just a normal refrigerator. Have you ran into like condensating really bad out of the fridge, right out of the fridge?
Yeah, and most of the time we do run into that. You know, when we pull it out of the freezer or the fridge, there's a layer of condensation on the outside of the jar, or the outside of. We've even found it on the outside of our bags of hash when we pull the hash out of the freezers after processing. To bring upstairs to press. So we've got to let them
get to room temp,
come to what is it, homeostasis or whatever, with the room temperature before we open the bags. Because otherwise we'll get a small layer of moisture on the inside of the bags, which is then making the hash wet, I see a lot, almost every damn time I go into a dispensary, I'll see the employees pull out a jar from the refrigerator for whatever goddamn reason.
Keep opening and closing it and putting it back.
Look at this.
Over and over and over and over and over
Which
again.
is then you're gonna stick it on your nail and it's gonna go.
Man, I know it sounds like suicide for the samples, but I'd almost rather have them just leave the samples out at room temp, and when they oxidize, throw them away.
Yeah,
dude, that is literally what we do.
We can't afford it.
Exactly. Coming from a position, it's a cost of doing business, and if you're in a situation where your customer can actually smell that, put it up to their nose, handle it themselves, and smell it, it's going to sell so much more than you would otherwise. And that has been my own business practice, if you will, for as long as I've been doing this. Is I will put out at events when I have my tent set up, I will put out, doesn't matter if it's 3 flavors or 22 flavors, a sample of every single jar. And it's not just a sample, it is a full what you're going to get, whether it's 1 gram, 3 grams, half gram, or whatever. I pull out a full jar and slap it right on the table, open all day. And sometimes they sit in the sun. Sometimes it's a cloudy, cold day and they're fine. Sometimes people are driving by on golf carts and kicking up dust, and you know what I mean, and there's nothing you can do about it. But my stuff, at the end of the day, it's still going to give off that delicious terpy smell that you know and love, and you're going to expect. And it's worth it to me to sacrifice one of every single one to know that you had the opportunity to in some way try it before you buy it.
It's kind of like a double-edged sword too, because the fridge will keep the slow down that oxidization, so it'll keep the color a little better, but you ain't gonna get much of a smell out of the refrigerator,
out of a cold one.
It's definitely a double-edged sword. Yeah, you pull one out of the refrigerator, it doesn't have the smell,
but it has the color.
But then you pull one out and you leave it on the counter, and it smells a lot better, but it gets a little bit darker.
It's gonna get
a little bit drier. And then, and then how long do you have to change a jar that's sat on the counter because you don't want a jar that sat there for a month.
It can't be like
to show
brown.
the customer. Right.
Now it's all dried out and like hard patty or something.
Here, this is a sample jar, which we change it once a month.
Looks great,
Looks
right?
like brown
Man,
sugar.
that just sucks. that's just part of it, I guess.
It really is. And I mean, part of it is these dispensaries they're not very good at inventorying. And there's a big cost of holding on to inventory.
It all adds up. I mean, it adds up.
Even when it's a 100 gram, $100 or $50 even item, that's the size of a thumb drive, like a USB thumb drive.
Yeah.
Like even if it's that small and it's that valuable, to load up on those and then sit on them for 2, 3, 6 months, 9 months, and then all of a sudden you got product that legitimately just isn't good anymore. That's more costly than just having a quicker turnover, And
oh yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of these businesses just want to either have exclusivity on the product or they want to have as much of it as possible. And they don't think about the shelf life, quite frankly, it seems.
Yeah. Or good preservation techniques. I don't
storage
know.
and
I don't know when people stopped using vacuum sealers.
not
get
me,
the
man.
oxygen out of stuff, man, and seal it.
Yeah. It's dude, this is what we harp on.
It.
It's time, temperature, and atmospheric exposure. Putting it in a vac sealed bag in the freezer stops all of those things essentially.
Yeah, I mean it slows it to a very slow crawl.
So there's different variables there as well. Are we wrapping it in parchment paper and vacuum sealing it so we're ultimately getting all of the fucking air out of it? Or are we putting it into a jar, which limits our vacuuming process, right? Because now we have atmosphere in here.
Oh yeah.
But we're vacuum sealing the outside of the jars inside the bag, right? So is there a difference there?
There probably is. What I do personally is I'll cure to my whatever preferred. Let's say I'm doing cold cure. I'll do the last time I'm gonna whip it. It's done and it's ready, and then I'll transfer it to a jar and leave as little headspace as I can. Close it, and then I'll vac seal it. Is that the best way to do it? I don't know. The way that I see it, the least headspace I leave it, the better chance I have at keeping it that way. But parchment might be the way if you want to keep it fresh and then cure it down the road. That's probably the best way to preserve it. Probably.
I was gonna say you can kind of stop things in time by removing those 3 variables, but how long do you want to do that, and at what cost? And again, it's even just something as simple as inventory costs. It could be running a freezer. When you start scaling those things up, they get pretty expensive.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rex, have you ever had rosin cold cure? Actually, two things. Have you ever had rosin cold cure in the freezer? And what do you think fits into the category of a true cold cure? Or what is a cold cure? The definition of a cold cure to you? 2 questions.
Yeah, I have had stuff turn in the freezer, but it was very, very rare, and it was only that small range, the 190, because sometimes I like to pull the 119 to 90 and make some super cool stuff, and sometimes that shit'll cure because it's just. I mean, even when I cold cure it, it almost has a sugar consistency. Have you ever had something do that on you where you're trying to batter it and you go to dig into it and you're like, man, this is like crystallized in here. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of time.
Yeah, I've had that happen in the freezer before, but not very often. And for me, cold cured would be no additional heat, room temp or below. Whatever you want to call that.
That was going to be my next kind of detailed question.
Or you could have a wine cooler. Like I like to do shit like that too, and keep it at 55 and 60% humidity, and let it ride. You know, I mean, it could be whatever you want like that. I feel like, you know.
So is room temp a cold cure?
I would call room temp a cold cure. Yeah.
Some people call the room temp I think they call it a speed cure or whatever. You know, I think they like to classify it because it's
going to be a week or less, I would imagine, for most stuff. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, some shit I've experienced going overnight, but usually up to a week. Some cultivars I've seen take week and a half ish, but I think the big variable there is headspace and temperature.
Yeah, for sure.
And headspace
and
is
genetics,
atmosphere,
and composition of that oil. You know,
genetics is Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's the initial variable. I want to talk about headspace so real quick, because one of the biggest variables and the differences between solventless and hydrocarbon extraction and what's left in that headspace or that atmospheric area in a jar, or even a sealed jar, is typically it's pressure in a hydrocarbon environment, because some of those solvents are off-gassing and they're taking up, essentially taking up that environment through that positive pressure. How does that change? And how does that make things different? And how does that create, what variables does that create?
Well, I mean, for solventless, when you're heat curing to make a jam, it's kind of that same principle. To be honest, you're creating pressure with those. That
terpenes are a solvent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're saying it's basically, we're saying that under heat and pretty much any kind of heat, because room temperature is, it's heat. Headspace then becomes your off-gassing of terpenes, right? So we are losing terpenes, and especially with the cold cure. When you crack that jar and it just a little bit,
you hear it pop. Yeah.
It really, when you're smelling your fucking rosin, you're losing terpenes.
Yeah.
Right. They got to go somewhere, right?
Well, I mean, you're maybe not losing.
There's a little bit of
going up your
nose.
There's
a little bit of CO2 in there too, right? From all the conversions.
Yeah, the interactions.
Right.
Yeah. So a little bit of that hiss is a little bit of CO2 too, I would imagine.
For sure. And hey, well, all that being said, here in Michigan, and I'm sure beyond, we've been required to have these certified pressurized vessels to create sauce with a hydrocarbon mixture, because hydrocarbons are very flammable, explosive.
Yeah.
That's the scary thing, right? See, when
no more mason jars, eh?
Yeah, definitely no more mason jars for the commercial side. But thinking about that, I'm wondering if we shouldn't apply the same rules and regulations to the solventless commercial side, because they're creating pressure too, from what you're telling me.
They are creating pressure, and an unknown amount to most, I would assume.
Too much for them jars sometimes.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can.
Have you ever seen
them pop the lid?
I've never popped the lid, even with hydrocarbons in it.
Oh, really? In a mason jar?
Yeah, dude. Never was.
Oh no, yeah, we've popped.
I've definitely.
I mean, not. what is popping a lid?
Jars?
I mean,
just getting it to pop up, not necessarily losing the pressure, but just.
Oh yeah,
we get pressure where the lid like the bubbles, but
pyramids.
You're okay. Well, no. I've never had it lose structure to the point of pyramiding or ever popping off. It's just gets pressurized to the point of is this a new jam kind of thing?
Oh
yeah, no, I've definitely had them.
Damn,
I've definitely,
but they don't fail.
Okay, yeah, I've never seen.
I've definitely seen them turn up a little. And it does make you think whoa, I wonder how.
You're like, man,
good job, Mason Jar.
Good
job.
Or whatever the company is. Well, hey, we're about to wrap up here. Rex, why don't you start us off and let us know where everyone can find you? I want to say I appreciate you coming on here, man. You are a brand new guest person, experience, and all that, and more to me. And it was a pleasure to discuss with someone that comes from obviously the cultivation background, but not only has experience in the hydrocarbon side of things, but on the solventless as well. And then you know, in the commercial atmosphere too, it's cool to kind of dig into all that. So, but let everyone know where can we find you on, you know, all your socials and beyond.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me. It's cool to talk with you guys. And Instagram is Terposaurus Rex, and then if you want to check out the Med Lab, it's Terpman and Rosin. And those are 2 places to find me for sure.
And if you're in Colorado, you can actually find his products on Weed Maps if you're in the area looking. Yeah, I was digging through the menu. You got quite the range.
Yeah, we try. It's the name of the game, man. Got to have a little something for everybody.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you guys. Thank you so much.
Dude, I always love shooting the shit with you, brother.
Yeah, man, we got to get together soon for sure.
Absolutely, we got to trade some terps.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
After this outdoor season, man, there's gonna be definitely got to meet up for sure.
Hey, one last question before I hit this end stream button. What does it say on the bottom of your shirt? You want a pizza?
Oh man, it says you want a piece of me.
Ah!
My daughter got it for me.
Have a great night.
Take care, everyone.